welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Evelyn Hershkowitz, Reader Services Librarian, and I'm here today with Anne Abel. She was my absolute favorite author this year, 2025. Her book is called High Hopes, and I'm just going to read you a little bit about Anne, and then we'll have her join us and chat. She's an author, storyteller, and influencer. Her first memoir, Maddie, Milo, and Me, about unwittingly rescuing an aggressive dog, was inspired by her Moth Story Slam win in New York City. It was published in 2024. Her second memoir, which is High Hopes, which is what she's going to talk about today, was published this year. She was featured on Newsweek about Boomer's story about how she met her husband of 45 years captivates the internet. Credentials include an MFA from the New School for Social Research, an MBA from the University of Chicago, a BS in Chemical Engineering from Tufts University. She is published on topics ranging from dogs, lovable and difficult, to coping with depression, family dysfunction, generational trauma, overcoming writer's block, and being a FaceTime grandmother. She has freelanced for multiple outlets and formerly wrote a weekly column, The Home Front, for Mainline Welcome Mat. She taught English and creative writing at the Community College of Philadelphia. Anne lives in New York City with her husband, Andy, and Wendell, a one-year-old Cavapoo. So, Anne, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so
Thank
excited
you.
to speak with you.
Thank you for having me
You're
and for
so
all your
welcome.
kind words about High Hopes.
I absolutely loved High Hopes. It was my favorite book this year. And if you could just tell everybody what it's about.
Well, I suffer with severe depression. I've had ECT electroconvulsive therapy 3 times. And at the age of 59, I had never been to a concert. My parents didn't believe in music or fun. But that Labor Day weekend, 2012, my son and daughter-in-law came to Philadelphia at the last minute to visit so they could go to a Bruce Springsteen concert. I knew nothing about the man, had no interest in seeing him. But a few hours before the show, I decided to push myself up off the couch and go because I wanted to spend time with him. That summer, I had undergone my third regimen of ECT. It had to be stopped halfway through because I was losing my memory. And because of the memory loss, I didn't remember the July wedding of my son and daughter-in-law. But now we were together at the stadium, and as we were waiting for 2 hours, they were showing me, telling me wedding stories and showing me wedding pictures. And in one picture, they're standing there flanked on one side by her parents, the other side by my husband, Andy, and me. And they're beaming. Her parents are smiling, Andy's smiling. I'm just staring into the camera, trance-like, vacant. I'm not smiling or frowning. I'm not there. And looking at my catatonic face in the photograph, I felt a jab in my heart. I felt like a tourist in my own life. Then suddenly the crowd mysteriously rose in unison, and I rose too. And up on the screen was the face of a man with the biggest, kindest smile I had ever seen. And I felt my heart opening for him and the 40,000 people around me. I was swaying and clapping and smiling. And this man at 62, is 3 years older than me. If he could keep going like this, so could I. And for 3+ hours, Bruce Springsteen's energy, enthusiasm, and humanity lifted me. For 3+ hours, he made me feel like I had a chance. He made me feel alive. I had never felt so good, so happy, so energetic. It was like unlike anything I had ever felt before. And then exactly a year later, after having one desk too many thrown at me at the community college where I had taught for 5 years, I walked out the door and thought, I'm never coming back. But as I was driving home, I was panicking. I was terrified that without the structure and focus of the classroom, I'd slide right back into the abyss. And I wasn't doing ECT again. It had been a disaster the last time. I knew I needed to think outside the box and come up with a lifeline and come up with it fast. I'm not the kind of person who can sit around an empty house or an empty family room and just kind of figure out. It was just that was going to be a disaster. And then I remembered how hopeful and alive I felt at Springsteen concerts. And somewhere I had seen that he was touring Australia in 4 months. And as I was merging onto the expressway, I thought, I know I'll go to Australia in February and follow Bruce Springsteen. Now, I have to tell you, I have to admit, I hate to travel. I hate to be alone. And remember, I hadn't known who this guy was a year earlier, but I was fighting for my life. So I went home without even taking off my coat or saying hello to the dogs. I sat down, Googled Australia travel agent, wrote to the first five who popped up. The next day, one of them called me, and within a week, the trip was booked. And I did not go on this trip to change. I didn't go to have fun. People like me don't have fun. I was going for structure and focus. I was going because I did not know what else to do. But I came home a different person. For the first time in my life, I had a positive ball of energy, and I had a story about me that I was proud of, a story about me that I wanted to tell. And that's the story of High Hopes. And that was just the beginning, actually. It turns out that was that trip 12 years ago, almost 13 years ago, was the first step in a transformation that continues today, almost 13 years later. Everything about my life is different now, including my depression. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's it. You know what? I don't suffer from depression, but I do suffer from anxiety. And I have trouble just going to Roosevelt Field by myself, okay? So reading this book and seeing what you are able to accomplish to me was like mind-boggling. Like I was like, this is unbelievable. Like I'm a little older than you were at that time, and I just can't even imagine doing that. I was just absolutely enthralled and fascinated and shocked that anybody could get on a plane by themselves after suffering from everything you suffer from and go to Australia. Like I'm telling you, I could never, I can't even drive to the city by myself.
Well, I'm not sure I could do that. I'm not sure I could do that. But I'll tell you, I was terrified. If I could have just disappeared in a wisp of smoke from this world and not left anyone sad behind me, I would have preferred to do that. I mean, I'm not someone who has trouble packing. I just throw everything in a suitcase. I brought my suitcase down a month before the trip. I could not put anything in that suitcase. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. But I'm also very disciplined. I'm very disciplined. Very like I work out. The only thing that helps at all with my depression is working out. And to this day, I mean, I'm 72, and I have I rehabilitate from things at this age, but if I've got a doctor's go ahead, I work out and I feel like crap. I feel horrible. And every day, even though I do it every day, each morning I have to say to myself, just look at this like an experiment because it's so hard for me to believe I'm going to feel better. But I am really good at doing ECT. I committed myself inpatient twice, and I had ECT also once outpatient. I was terrified. You know what it's like? I didn't like overnight camp, and now I was committing myself to staying in a hospital, with strangers, with other nutcases like me. I was terrified. But I will do anything. I will push myself to do anything if I think it's going to help me. And that's what I did with this trip. That's what it was.
I'm amazed, absolute amazed by it. I think it's wonderful that you're able to do that. Do you feel better now? I mean, I know you said you still suffer, but on
Yeah.
a daily basis, you feel better than
Yeah,
you
I am
did?
so much better than I was before that trip. So
That's so
it was the
amazing.
beginning. Like when I say I came back with a positive ball of energy for the first, and I was determined not to lose that ball of energy. And I got back, my friends all disappointed me, much of my family disappointed me. In the book, I talk about a psychiatrist. I went to him
Yeah.
the day first of all, the day after I came home, my best friend came over and she said to me, this is someone who knew she had seen me commit myself to a hospital. She's seen me agree to do ECT. And she said to me, "Anne, I didn't think you'd go on the trip. And when you went, I didn't think you'd be able to do it and you'd come home." And I just looked at her like, you clearly don't know who I am. I might be depressed. I might be a lot of things, but when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And then I went to this psychiatrist. It was supposed to be I went once a month for 15 minutes for the meds, which I wasn't even on any meds with him. And I didn't want to, like, I was hoping he wouldn't remember I'd gone on the trip because as you can see, I can talk, and I didn't want to talk over. And then he said, tell me a story. And I started, so I did. I told him a story about Barbara Carr, since you read the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I got excited and I was into it. And then his phone rang, took it, he hung up, and then he wrote something. And then he hands me this piece of paper and he said, here's a prescription for a sedative. And I just stood up, put my pocketbook on my shoulder, and said, Dr. Body, I didn't go all the way to Australia to come back to West Philadelphia and be sedated. Like everybody just wanted to keep me as this depressed person. No one wanted to hear my stories. My husband, who we've now been married 47 years, we'd been married 35 years. For 2 years, he was throwing dishes. He had a divorce lawyer. I mean, it was a mess. I came home. I just, I knew I need, and it turned out he was having trouble at work. He teaches at the Wharton School at
Mm-hmm.
Penn. And I had, for a couple of years, he didn't feel appreciated there. He'd been there 30 odd years. I just figured he was a big boy. He could take care of himself. I came back from this trip. I said, look, Andy, you've got to go visit another school. So within 2 minutes, no time, he had an offer from the University of Chicago. So we went out there in January. I had no idea what I was going to do. It was 8 degrees out. I signed up for improv. That's all I knew. I quickly flunked out of improv. And then I came home. Now it's February and it's 12 degrees. And I said to my new dog walker, what do you do when you're not walking dogs? And she said, I host one of the city's many storytelling open mics, and I also tell stories at the Moth. Now, I had never heard of storytelling as a genre, and I'd never heard of the Moth, the big storytelling organization, but I knew I had the story to tell, and I also suffered with terrible writer's block. I'd gotten an MFA in creative writing in my mid 40s. And I could write about anything anyone asked me to write about, but I couldn't write about myself. My head would, after one sentence, I'd say, so what, who cares? And I'd shut down. I'd never stood in front of a mic or on a stage, but I forced myself to go to these open mics. You have 7 minutes, and I would tell this story, and then people really responded to it. And then people started asking me to tell stories at their story shows. And then a friend took me to the Moth and insisted I put my name in to try to tell a story. And I was terrified. But I got called as the last storyteller that night. I went up, the lights were so bright, I couldn't see the audience. But as I spoke, I could hear them laughing and gasping and connecting. And I won that night's story slam. I told a 5-minute story. And my parents, until the days they died 5 years ago, they told me not to talk to them because I had nothing interesting to say. But now audiences were telling me something different, and they inspired me to fight through the writer's block and write High Hopes, which just came out a few months ago. And in the middle, it was during the lockdown that I was writing this a lot. And an editor had it for, it was just way too long. And a friend kept saying, write about Milo, write about Milo. That was his rescue dog. And I said, I can't, I have writer's block. And then I found 50 pages in my computer that I'd written 15 years earlier. And before you knew it, I had a beginning, middle, and end. And it seemed like a more straightforward story than High Hopes. So I thought I'll try to get that one out and come back on High Hopes. And that's what happened. And then, you said you follow that when Maddie, Milo, and Me came out, the publisher said you should go on social media to promote it. By now, I was living in New York with my husband. And, to me, social media was Facebook. Someone had put me on it 15 years earlier. It seemed daunting, but that afternoon, another dog walker came in. We were in New York now, and I asked her if she knew anyone who did social media, and she gave me the name of Arseni, a 19-year-old computer science major who did social media for her. He's a CUNY, and I now call Arseni Maestro or Steven Spielberg. We've had 26 viral videos. I have over 700,000 followers. And these are followers who like to hear my stories, followers who say that my stories are comforting, inspiring, and validating. And it's surreal. It's as if these people are the antidote to my parents' toxicity. And this all started with that trip. And none of this would have happened if and actually, Maddie, Mile, and Me is the publisher's all-time best-selling memoir.
Wow.
It's a good book, but
I
it's
haven't
social
read it yet, but I
media.
will, I promise.
Yeah,
Actually,
but
my dogs, My dog's name is Milo.
Oh, it's a nice
How
name.
funny is that? Yeah. My dog's name is Milo.
So,
So I know
so
in the
that
book you didn't want to meet Bruce Springsteen.
I didn't. I mean, since then I won't go into it now, but I won a guitar and I had a photo op with him. But
Oh, you did.
yeah, I think actually the guitar in the on the cover of High Hopes is a guitar that I won at a charity auction. And I wanted him to put Dream Baby Dream on, but that's just a cover for him. So I asked for High Hopes. But um,
So what was it like meeting him?
well, it was pretty. It's not. Well, actually, I don't want to go on. I don't want to go off on a
Okay.
tangent in another story, but I don't know what kind of person I don't make a pretense. I don't even want to know what he's like as a private person. To me, what's important is the kind of person he is on stage. And for me, that's a magic. I mean, he just creates a magic for me. And when he's on stage, I felt things I had never, experienced before. And, a part of the two things that change, I think the reason the trip helped me begin to change was the kindness of strangers in Australia. At home, people rolled their eyes that I was chasing him across, Bruce Springsteen to Australia. They didn't appreciate or care that I was fighting for my life. And I was embarrassed when I got on the plane and the flight attendant said, "Why are you coming to Australia?" Like I winced. Like, what were people going to think? I was 60 and I'm traveling across the world to see this rock star. I was embarrassed, but I
But you're
told
not
him,
alone, you know that.
well, but I was glad I had a wedding ring on so that people would know that I had one person I was connect. I felt like people would think I was just this lone, I don't want to go into it, but her face lit up and then her colleague came over later. And many people in Australia called me courageous, and young people told me they couldn't get their mothers off the couch to do things they had done before they retired. So each time someone said something positive about me, even though I didn't believe it, I would step outside myself and try to see the me they were seeing. And then at concerts, it wasn't a bunch of depressed concerts, but Bruce Springsteen would say things like, well, first when he said one night he did a solo of Dream Baby Dream in an encore. And listening him and watching to him sing this, I realized I had never even thought about dreaming. I was so busy doing what I was told and hoping for my parents' acceptance. But that night, I floated out of the arena feeling like I could dream. And it didn't happen right away. But I believe that once you feel something, it's easier to recreate. Like I had never even thought about it. And another night he went back and forth across the stage going, "How do you get through the day and stay alive inside?" And when I heard him saying this, I thought, if Bruce Springsteen can say this to an arena full of fans, I must not be the only one feeling like this. It's okay to struggle and try again. I felt validated. And of course, he's a lot of fun. I had never done the three-letter F word fun until I went to one of his concerts. And when he's saying it's all right to have a good time, I took it to heart that it was okay for me to have fun finally after 60 years. So he and the people in Australia helped me begin to see myself and my place in the world in a new way. I mean, it was baby steps, but I had never looked at myself the way these people were helping me see myself.
It's amazing. It absolutely is amazing. Now, what your social media? Now you and your husband Andy are going around New York eating at all
Yeah,
different places.
yeah. Well, people really, really like yesterday. Someone wrote to me and she said, "Anne, I have cancer again, but watching your videos around New York make me feel like I'm traveling." And when I read that, I thought, okay, that's why I'm doing it. People like them, and then something like that. And so many people at the beginning, when I first started going viral, and people were writing, "Anne, your voice is soothing, calming, you're relatable, interesting." I didn't understand. It was surreal. Like, what were these? My whole life, I'd been told I had to be quiet at the dinner table. My father used to say, "You can listen, but don't speak." And now people were saying my voice, I didn't understand it, but you know what? I don't feel like that person they described, but when I do these videos now, and people, one woman, I said to her, "What do you mean I inspire you? How?" And she sent me an email. She said, I'm 82. I'm in late stage lupus, and watching you now, I feel inspired to put one foot in front of the other. She had been abused by her mother, and it had just weighed down on her. But hearing me talk about it, she said, and she's written to me since then. She said, made her realize she did not need to keep carrying that with her. So that's another baby step. I never could have seen, I didn't even know what social media was.
Well, you're doing a great job. And that's so nice that people are writing to you saying all those wonderful things. It's incredible. It really is.
Well, it's nice to think that you can touch someone or help someone, that by share, because I really believe by share, and what I realize now is by sharing our stories with each other or one another, we can offer each other a glimmer of hope,
Hmm.
inspiration, and sometimes fun. It's validating to hear other people, express things that you also feel. You don't feel so alone.
Yeah, no, I'm so absolutely love everything you're saying and everything you're doing. And I thank you so much. And thank you so much for speaking with me. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so happy holidays.
All right. Thank you. You too, Evelyn.
Okay, and we'll be in touch. So
All
I'm going to
right.
close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.